William Collins presents The Restless Republic, Britain Without a Crown, by Anna Keay. Read by Lucy Tregear. Forward. This book was born of ignorance. Studies of the 17th century tend to deal either with some aspect of the kingdoms of the Stuart monarchy or with the world of the civil wars and the Revolution. There are lots of good reasons for dividing an entire century into manageable chunks, but it was not, of course, how it was. Those who walked the streets of Lincoln or London shared a bottle of wine in the inns of Exeter or Edinburgh in the 1630s, often did so still in the 1650s and 1670s. Their dress and the style of their hair might have changed, and age would have weathered their skin and blurred their sight, but this was nothing to how the environment around them had shifted over that time. Few, if any, other generations of British people can have experienced such a period of national, political and social change. Many of those I knew from both the earlier and later 17th century lived through these Republican years, and I wanted to know more of what they had experienced. Very few people tuck neatly into one historical age or other, and live only in the years with which they're most closely associated. Samuel Pepys and Christopher Wren, quintessential figures of the age of Charles II, were, respectively, a naval secretary and a pioneering mathematician during the 1650s. Oliver Cromwell's daughter Mary and her husband Lord Fauconberg, whose boisterous wedding party Oliver himself had hosted, were popular figures at the late Stuart courts. The Earl was ambassador to Venice, a friend of the Duke of Monmouth, and later a prominent supporter of the Glorious Revolution. Well into the reign of Queen Anne, the residents of Cheshunt in Hertfordshire would see an elderly man out riding with his dogs, or sketching landscapes, who was none other than Richard Cromwell, one-time Lord Protector of the Commonwealth of England, Scotland and Ireland. This book attempts to inhabit Britain in the only period in its history when it was a republic, and to try, by seeking to stand at the shoulder of a number of contemporaries, to understand what it was like and why. It is not a book about the Civil War, which was largely over by the time it begins, but it is a book about life in a post-war land scarred by conflict and its monumental cost, human, material and financial. The 9 men and women taken as protagonists are not representative of British society. The sources make this impossible, but they do represent different experiences. Some, such as John Bradshaw, President of the First Commonwealth Council of State, stood at the centre of events. Others, the young visionary Anna Trapnell, or the Norfolk gentlewoman Alice Lestrange, at the periphery. Some, most notably Oliver Cromwell, are household names. Others, such as the irrepressible newspaperman Marchmont Needham, are unknown to all but academics. Through the surviving primary sources, I've tried to piece together a picture of what their lives were in these years, and to do so in a way which also tells the story of the age. The men and women of the 1650s were not two-dimensional woodcuts or joyless caricatures, but real people, with friends and enemies, anxieties and aspirations, desires and disappointments, like any person alive today. My hope is that through them, the age in which they lived, which was at times as unfamiliar to them as it is to us today, might become more real and make more sense to we who, after all, walk in their footsteps still. There's a risk in writing about a decade sometimes called the interregnum that it becomes defined in the negative. Given our knowledge of what came next, it's easy to imagine that the return of the monarchy, the House of Lords and the episcopacy was inevitable, and that these years were always destined to be a historical blind alley. This is not my contention. The 1650s was a time of extraordinarily ambitious political, social, economic and intellectual innovation, and it was not a foregone conclusion that the British Republic would fail. But it was also a time about which a characterization in the negative, Britain without a crown, is relevant. The decade was defined to a significant degree by what was being rejected. Indeed, part of the reason for the fall of the Republic was that its protagonists agreed far more on what they did not want than what they sought in its place.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?